Personally, I don't have a problem if someone is letting out a home that they themselves live in. But I think in apartment complexes in the city where entire apartments are being let out by absentee landlords and causing disruption for other residents who do live there, that's something that Dublin City Council and the government really need to tackle.
Airbnb told Primetime it always welcomes the opportunity to work with policymakers on clear home sharing rules. But just who will set the rules is still in play.
Rita O'Reilly reporting. I'm joined now by Frank MacDonald, Chairman of Temple Bar Residents, and by columnist Eamon Delaney, Director of the Free Market Hibernian Forum. Frank, Temple Bar Residents took this case because you claimed that your lives were being made a misery. A lot of people might say you're living in the centre of the city.
No, sorry, that isn't true, David. We took the case because we became aware through an ad on daft.ie last March that this apartment in Cranalley was being advertised for sale for $425,000, which was vastly more than it would get otherwise.
So your lives weren't being made a misery?
No, well...
Well,
not by that particular apartment.
Right.
But, you know, the point about it is that the reason why it was being sold for such a high price was because it had earned $79,300 last year on 90% occupancy through Airbnb.
Sure. So you were taking the case because property prices were rising?
No. We weren't taking it on that basis. Okay. We were taking it on the basis that this was a very clear case where of short-term lets of an apartment being in effect given over entirely to short-term letting. And we had come across several cases in Temple Bar where apartments, for example, one apartment was let through Airbnb, became a brothel for 2 weeks last Christmas. A family living in the same building with a 5-year-old child. And the 5-year-old child got very upset about this.
Well, I'm sure they would. And in fairness, I don't think that's the normal thing that happens with Airbnb.
Well, I'm not saying that it's a normal thing, but anything can happen. That's the point. And, you know, the reference in your report earlier on there about things like party flats and people making noise in the middle of the night and everything else. Yes. So it has become a real problem in the city centre, not just in Temple Bar, it's a citywide problem. And this is happening at a time when Dublin is experiencing a housing emergency.
Okay, well, we'll move on to that in a second, but just to stick with the original complaint, I mean, I saw you quoted in the Irish Independent today, I think, saying that your lives had been made hell.
Not mine, because we've banned, in our building, we've banned.
Because the particular building that this case was taken on, I believe, has a coffee shop and a restaurant on the ground floor. So, you know, how much noise could extra residents be making?
Well, we weren't making that point. We were making a point about the deduction of apartments from the city's housing stock.
Okay.
I mean, this is a very serious problem.
Okay, so you're actually saying...
David, it is not just a question of antisocial activity or party flats or brothels or whatever. Yeah. It is a question of Dublin facing a housing emergency, and Airbnb and other agencies have deducted.
I do want to get onto that point. I do want to get onto that point, but I'm just confused because of you were quoted in several newspapers as complaining about the antisocial element.
Yes, there is.
And yes, you're living in Temple Bar, which is the party capital of Europe, nearly.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I've been living in Temple Bar for the last 21 years, and one of the things that we want to retain in Temple Bar, as in the city centre in general, is a residential community. And we don't want to see the residential community diluted by apartments being turned into hotel use.
Okay. Eamon Delaney, nobody wants to have a constant stream of strangers walking past their hall door?
No, but Airbnb allows people to actually take into their house for badly needed income, as the report said. People they might have a kinship with.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about entire residential units.
Okay, well, I mean, this is a case, bad cases, you know, or hard cases make bad law.
Well, it's half of the Airbnb listings.
Well, like, let's go back to the Temple Bar. I would agree with the point you made to Frank. Temple Bar is hardly the quiet cultural quarter that was envisaged by Charles Haughey. It is a party zone. I applaud Frank in trying to reverse that. He's been living there since the very beginning. But it is what it is. So this is a case that had to be addressed in terms of planning. There was obviously an evasion in planning, and it's been turned into a fast-track hotel. Even at that, I wouldn't see it as a problem. Because we need accommodation for tourists, we need income. With the sterling drop after Brexit, we don't want to do anything. We want to free up more and more space for people to come to tours, such as to stay in Temple Bar. My great, without going on to this, my great fear would be that this would be a template for the rest of Airbnb usage throughout the country in Galway or Cork.
Yeah, but hold on
Dublin,
a second. Now, your Hibernian forum, you're also supposed to be in favour of individual liberty. What about Frank's liberty to enjoy his property in peace?
Those issues are always a factor when it comes to, I could say that about my neighbour having dogs barking in the middle of the night. Or that's a matter of.
But when you moved into your house, you possibly knew that the neighbour had a dog. You didn't know that they were going to start a hotel.
No, but David, actually, near to me in Phibsborough, there's someone who's actually doing lets so quick that they could dispense with Airbnb. There's also people doing Airbnb all around me. So, you don't always know when you've got someone next to you who the landlord is going to rent out to, And I just want to say Hibernia Forum does believe strongly that in the free market principle, so much so that if you had someone from hotel groups here who are resisting it, we would say no, free market principles are to give a cheaper alternative for
Frank, you mentioned Brexit. I mean, one of the biggest problems that multinational corporations coming to Ireland, I'm talking about the likes of Facebook, Google and so on, even Airbnb itself, is that they cannot find accommodation for their staff, for their top flight staff. You can't, at the moment on daft.ie, there's only 1,300 residential units available for letting in Dublin City.
Frank,
this is a very serious problem. That if we are going to cash in some cynical way, we need more accommodation.
We need to build more houses.
And we need also to build more hotels.
But hold on a second, Eamon, hold on a second. At a time when we have this massive crisis of shortage in the rental properties, to take 3,000 rental properties out of the market for short-term.
But take from who, David? Do you and I have the right to? Well, hold on.
Your valued
do you
market.
and I have the right to tell owners of houses what they should do with their property? There's no other asset that people have invested that I know of in this country or any other country where the state feels it can go in and tell people what they should do with their property.
It regulates labour.
Well, okay, one room at the back of a house is hardly going to.
But that's not what we're talking about.
Well, I'm not. Well, just all the issues because the fear showed in your VT there was that this would be a blanket ban, and we go for blanket bans in this country. We go for an overreaction and an overregulation, in my opinion. But going back to what you're describing, I mean, something has to be done to prevent a fast-track hotel. But look, the housing crisis and people not getting houses, we're not building enough houses, we're not building enough social housing, we're not building enough private housing, the banks aren't lending. So for Frank to I'm not saying you're deliberately doing it, but it seems like you're picking on families and hard-pressed, squeeze middle, whatever you want, but people who want to make a few quid by renting out a room
that is not
a friendly...
This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about commercial operations. We're talking about a change of use from residential to commercial, which is the net import of One Lord Plano's decision in the Crown Alley case. They found that the activity involved there was wholly commercial in nature. And that is the case in relation to all 2,800 entire homes that are being rented out through Airbnb for short-term lets.
You don't have a problem with
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, well,
no problem with that at all.
So
we're agreed on that.
Okay.
But the point about it is, this is all, the entire homes problem is getting completely out of hand. The number of 2,800 that we've quoted already, that is double the number of just a year ago. This is an unregulated sector. Yeah. They have no planning permission. In all probability, the vast bulk of them are not even paying the revenue, the due taxes on
But what
on
about
their
the
income.
argument that if tourists can't get what they want here, the type of accommodation they want to get here, they'll go somewhere else, they'll go to Copenhagen, they'll go to Amsterdam, whatever.
Well,
You'd be happy enough if there was fewer tourists in Temple Bar, wouldn't
I suppose that there's an argument in favour of that. But I would point out the example of Berlin, which was quoted in your report earlier on, where they took severe action in Berlin because they had lost, the city's housing stock had lost 12,000 units, and they needed to recover.
Okay. Berlin is a slightly special, different case because I've lived in Berlin. Berlin authorities don't want it to be turned into just a party capital. It's lost a lot of its population, so there was an issue. I think New York is a separate case also because the hotel federations there are so powerful. We heard John Fitzpatrick, the Irish hotelier, told me he wants to resist it because they want to keep prices very high to get onto Manhattan. So this is disruption. This is the shared economies. This is the front line of the free market, and it allows regular people to pop up and provide a service.
Okay, well,
we need more hotels. That's what we need.
Agreed on some things anyway. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. And